Welcome in. I am Ralph Michaels, and I have an NFL doubleheader game breakdown. We're going to start with Houston, Denver, and make sure you stay tuned and watch the Green Bay, Carolina video. Two great systems for you to use throughout the rest of this year. They are 65 and 62%, both with a huge sample size and both long-term systems. Well, let's start off, as I said, with Houston and Denver. We have Houston, who started 0-3 this season. They fought back. They're now close to being in the playoff race, winning 3 of their last 4 games. In that span, they shut out Tennessee 26-0. Go to Baltimore, win 44-10. Go to Seattle, play okay, lose 27-19 late, and then beat San Francisco last night with by far their best performance of the season with a 475 to 223 yard edge. The Denver Broncos beat Tennessee to start the season, lose back-to-back games, but again, as the season progresses, losing at Indy and losing at the Chargers, nothing to be ashamed of. They have now reeled off 5 straight wins, including beating Cincinnati, Philadelphia on the road, the Jets over the pond, and then the Giants and Dallas the last 2 weeks. Well, when we look at this game now, Houston comes in as a small favorite, current total of 41, and both teams have very strong home-road dichotomies. At home, the Houston Texans are plus 112 yards per game. On the road, only plus 24 yards per game. On the season, Houston has solid numbers, folks. They're number 7 at plus 62 yards per game. That is not indicative of a team that is under 500 for the year. Denver's numbers year to date, even better. They are number 3 in the NFL at plus 75 yards per game, but their home road dichotomy even bigger than Houston's. At Mile High, the Denver Broncos are plus 161 yards per game. On the road, they're getting outgained by 10 yards per game. Edge, Houston. We look at their numbers season to date relative to what their opponents' averages are. Well, Denver's number 18 on offense. They're actually averaging less than their opponents normally allow. Their defense is number 4, holding foes to 51 yards per game more than they have gained in their season averages. Nice percentages. Houston, just a bit behind on offense, number 20, but their defense is number 1 in the NFL, guys. This Texans defense is holding teams to 68 yards per game less than they normally average. And while the Denver offense is number 18 and the Houston offense is number 20, if you looked at the last 4 weeks, Houston would be the better team on both offense and defense. Remember, this Texans offense team struggled out of the stretch. 265 yards against the Rams, 266 yards against Tampa Bay, 271 yards against Jacksonville, and in their last 3 games, while they did only have 254 yards in Seattle, they had 417 at Baltimore and 475 at home against San Francisco. Now I'm going to point out something the Gold Sheet said. And by the way, this week's Gold Sheet is half price. If you go to the front of WagerTalk and you want to see the Gold Sheet, $9 will get you a write-up on every NFL game, every college football game. That breaks down to about 7 cents per game. Here's what the Gold Sheet said about this game. Denver's last 3 road games have all stayed under the total, but this is the lowest total in the Denver game since week 7 of last year. Quarterback injuries drawed most of the headlines, but arguably the most impactful injury of last week was Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II. On ESPN Monday Night Countdown, Ryan Clark laid out why Surtain is so important as opposing quarterbacks don't even look to throw against them. It takes half the field away from their play game. But with him missing in this contest with a shoulder injury, that will change the Broncos' offensive philosophy and open up much of the field for C.J. Stroud and the Texans' offense. Last week, Stroud had a confidence-building 30 of 39 performance for 318 yards and 2 touchdowns. And guess what? That was without Christian Kirk and Nico Collins. No Surtain. Houston looking good. Obviously, we're going to lean that way. Couple situations I want to talk about. Technical edges. Well, Denver played the Dallas defense. And if you've watched any NFL game this week, you know just how bad the Dallas defense is. It's historic bad. So scoring 44 points against Dallas really isn't that big of a deal. But in the NFL, from week number 9 and later, teams that scored 38 points and won, now playing a non-division game as an underdog or small favorite, those teams have only gone 47 and 66 against the spread. That is 41.6%. Now we look at Houston. Houston at home. Folks, they're 2-9-1 over-under. They've been a solid under team. They're 1-8 over-under as a home favorite, including 0-3 this year. Offensive ranks of 18 and 20. Defensive ranks of 4 and number 1. Even though Surtain is out, that does give the lean to Houston, but we also do like the under in this game. We're going to go first half under. Both offenses are going to get slow to start. Both offenses are going to run the ball. And with these two defenses, we think they'll slow them down. Again, the loss for Denver in the secondary will be big if he misses more than a couple weeks, as they have Houston and Kansas City coming up. And Houston, home for a couple games. They're home this week. They were home last week, and they're also home next week against Jacksonville. We'll look for the under. We'll look for the Houston Texans, and we'll see if we can pull off both of those winners. Guys, I'm still going to break down Green Bay and Carolina with two great systems, but I do want to mention the Weekend Warrior is valid this week. I have a 5% college football play loaded for Saturday, 10-2 on those college football plays. My college football best bets, those 4% and 5% plays, a 5-0 run, and 19-6, 76%. You also get my Sunday NFL. I will have a best bet teaser play. Listen to this. My teaser's rated 4% and 5%, 18-4, 82%. Hit that like button. Make sure you follow WagerTalk on all their social medias. And let's get to game number 2, Carolina and Green Bay. The scheduling spot is going to have us on the Panthers here. Yeah, you look at Green Bay and they're off a win, 3 straight wins against Cincinnati, against Arizona, and against Pittsburgh. Carolina, off an embarrassing 40-9 loss. So why do we like the Panthers plus 13.5 with a total of 44? Well, let's think about that Green Bay game last week. That was Jordan Love against Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers against his old team. It's also a situation that Green Bay needed to come from behind to win that game. Remember, they trailed 16-7 at halftime. Big second half gets them to a 35-25 lead. That's not a positive in the NFL. When you have a team like Green Bay that was trailing by 9 or more at halftime and came back to win, they've only gone 59-96 against the spread. That is 38%. Another very important thing to look at is check out who Green Bay has next week. Their next game on deck is Philadelphia. Oh yeah, what happened last year? Well, they started off the season against Philadelphia and lost. And then they have playoff revenge against Philadelphia. They lost twice last year to the Eagles. So we have double revenge from one season, including playoff revenge. That is legitimate revenge. Normally, a team has to be a favorite and lose for me to say they have revenge, unless it is a playoff situation like it was. Legitimate revenge in that case for me. The Panthers. Dave Canales is in his second year. When he took over, he brought in a system. He wanted to change things to the way he coaches. What happened? Carolina started 1-7, both straight up in ATS in the first 8 games under the new head coach. But since that time, they have gone 12-5 ATS, including 8-1 against the spread off a straight up loss. That is 88%. And the last 5 games they have played the game after loss, not only have they covered all 5, they've done so by 13.3 points per game. Green Bay, just 3-7 against the spread their last 10. And as a favorite of -4 or more, guess what? 5 straight ATS losses for the Packers. Green Bay, top 5 yards per game diff. They're plus 70 yards per game. But Carolina, not far behind. They're number 14th. They're actually plus 6.4 yards per game, and that includes last week's embarrassment. Let's talk about last week. Carolina had beaten Miami, Dallas, and the Jets for 3 straight wins. The big difference, Bryce Young was hurt. Andy Dalton had to start the game. I do not like when NFL teams have an old quarterback following a mobile quarterback because the offense has to play differently. I prefer a backup quarterback that has at least the same type of skill set where the offense doesn't get changed. Well, last week, the aged Andy Dalton behind that O-line allowed 7 sacks. In their previous 5 games, the Carolina Panthers allowed 7 sacks. Bryce Young back. He's taken all the snap this week, says Andy Dalton got hurt last week. And I think him and this defense can keep it close. This Carolina defense has held 2 of the last 5 opponents to a season low. They're number 8 on the season, looking at what they allow versus their opponents' averages. And prior to the Buffalo game where they reeled off a couple big runs, the O-line was banged up, having to protect for Dalton. The D-line was on the field way too much last week. They gave up 245 yards rushing. But the previous 3 games, they allowed a total of 131 rush yards to their opposition. They do have a solid defense. Bryce Young, an 11-5 ratio, a couple of those turnovers early. He's played better down the stretch. Wouldn't surprise me for Carolina to keep it close in this situation, getting the 13.5. Again, a come from behind win for one team with Philadelphia on deck versus a team that was embarrassed with a backup quarterback. Both of those situations give us value with the Carolina Panthers. Check out the gold sheet for only $9. It's right on the front page of WagerTalk. And if you're interested, please do check out my Weekend Warrior with a 5% college football play on Saturday, 10-2 on those, and a best bet teaser for Sunday, 18-4, 82% on those. Hit the like button, leave a comment, make sure you follow WagerTalk TV, and have a great first November weekend of football.